That's one thing that we all fear as we get older is that our brain's going to kind of get dull or numb or we're forgetful. Well, studies have shown that is this really unique substance that activates parts of our brain that keep us really, really sharp. And by the way, the Surgeon General's report on, making, cancer causing, that's not news. I mean, we've known that for 50 years at least now. What about diet soda? In a way, even worse. And let me tell you why. That there is a holy trinity, as I call it, of beverages. Three very, very important beverages that are good for you. And the holy trinity is alcohol, has been part of human society ever since we began growing grains, going back 10,000 years, okay? Whether it's barley, whether it's honey, whether it's, or whatever it is, people have been making alcohol and it's been part of our human tradition. Alcohol is used to celebrate weddings, funerals, birthdays, holidays, major events, okay, significant major events. And so, my own personal view and, inform, even though I'm a scientist and a doctor, is that, what? Let's not get too out of shape about alcohol. It is part of our humanity, but it's very important when you're thinking about over the big picture, the functionality, the functional health part of it. And we're all human. Like you're going to get together for a wedding, have some champagne. You're going to actually have a holiday bar mitzvah, whatever it is you're going to do to celebrate something. I think it's okay. The key is not to over-consume alcohol. And here's the reason why. Alcohol, which is ethanol, EA, is really the chemical symbols for it, okay? That ethanol is toxic to every cell in your body. It's toxic to your brain, toxic to your heart, toxic to your nerves, toxic to your liver. And in fact, our body has developed some pretty sophisticated ways to disperse the toxicity of the alcohol. And our liver can burn it down, burn it off right. And we know we burn it off and we even breathe it out, which is what, the breathalyzer is all about if you get pulled over on the side of the road. So our body can actually take care of it. If you over-consume once, you're going to feel it. But then people get used to it. And if you over-consume over a long period of time, that's when the toxicity of the alcohol will really do a number on you, like really, really damage you. So I think that, again, in the interest of not making this black or white, alcohol is either an angel or the devil. Let's just say alcohol is part of humanity. I think it's perfectly fine to use it in moderation to, at events where you're commemorating, celebrating something, but always know that alcohol in any form, the ethanol, is actually toxic. So the more you have, the more toxins you're actually consuming, even though it's part of our culture. Now, what about this whole issue about beer and red wine? Well, actually, turns out that the beneficial aspects of beer and red wine have nothing to do with the alcohol itself. It has to do with what makes red wine red, which is the polyphenols that come from the fermentation. So if you removed all the alcohol and just had a glass of non-alcohol, de-alcoholized red wine, you'd get the benefits. And beer, similarly, it's the hops in the beer, the barley, okay, that actually wind up having the benefits, the polyphenols that actually come off of it. The xanthomers are actually the chemicals in beer. Remove all the alcohol, you'll get the benefit. And once you have the alcohol back, listen, you're going to get a buzz from it. All right. You're going to get all the things that alcohol is supposed to do, including the toxic aspect of it. So to me, this is kind of a judgment thing. I mean, look, it's like anything else that we do in life, use exercise, good judgment. You're driving a car on the road, follow the speed limit. Dangerous to speed. Speed kills every now and then. You went late for a meeting, you need to get in the fast lane, and you need to zip ahead. Use your best judgment. That's kind of how I approach the whole alcohol thing. And by the way, the Surgeon General's report on, making alcohol, cancer causing, that's not news. I mean, we've known that for 50 years at least. All right. So that's putting into policy from a government perspective. That's taking something that every medical doctor and almost every life scientist has known for the last 5 decades and just making it part of public health. What do you make of like the report saying that like moderation didn't matter? Because that was the one thing that stuck out to me that really surprised me. And it was very like accentuated on the report.
Well, I think that words matter. And I think that probably the policymakers drafting that language realize that. They say alcohol can cause cancer, but
moderation is okay, would just give people an out to be able to drink more. So they sort of took a hardline approach to it, saying that moderation doesn't really matter. I mean, look, moderation does matter, I mean, for sure it does, smoking one cigarette is different than smoking 100 cigarettes, all right? I mean, that's obviously true. So I think that if you're going to, listen, I have many friends and families and patients who drink alcohol as part of social custom. And when they ever ask me for health advice, which, a lot of people ask me for health advice, and they always bring up, maybe a little tenuously, they're a little bit afraid of what I'm going to say about alcohol. Like they don't want me to smack them in the face about alcohol. I always tell them, like, what about my wine? Do you mean I can't have any wine? I'm like, no. You know what? Listen, if there is something that's important for you enough to enjoy a glass of wine, life's for the living, You got to enjoy yourself a little bit. Just recognize there's the alcohol in the wine isn't good for you. It's a toxin. And the more you drink, the more toxic it's going to be. So exercise judgment, be moderate, take care of yourself. And I'm not your daddy, you're going to make your own decisions, just like anything else.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good. I mean, would you I don't know, Andrew Huberman put he had this whole talk on alcohol that was I don't know, has 5 million views now. And he was like, oh, 2 drinks a week, that's the max or something like that. Is there, when you talk about moderation, for you, is there a number where it's if you're exceeding this much alcohol content in a week, it's probably any benefit that you're
getting from the wine or the beer, independent of the alcohol, is just going to go out the window. I think that's again, this individual, it's an individual situation, because depending on your liver, if you have certain enzymes that detoxify the alcohol faster, if you're a fast acetylator or slow acetylator, these are terms that refer to how well your liver detoxifies things like alcohol. It's going to make a big difference if you're if you're drinking with food, no food, whether you're having liquor, whether you're having wine. I think that, again, I can't give one number that applies to everyone. But I would say, there's many countries, including the Mediterranean countries, where, supposedly the healthiest diets in the world, traditional ones, they do drink wine. They drink wine with meals, with food. I think that it still does boil down to being reasonable about what your intake actually is.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people, what they're actually weighing is the social cost of not ever partaking in it. Even if it's and that I feel like affects your longevity in another way, in the sense of at social gatherings or whatnot. If I'm just and I understand with people that are alcoholics, they're completely but if people are just completely avoiding going to social gatherings or whatnot, I'm not going to drink. What is the social benefit of even going out? I'm going to go out to a wine bar and have a good time, whatever.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that really it's a social custom, part of our humanity. We talk about health. We sometimes just forget about the humanity of things. We gotta live. We gotta be human. And for me, even though I'm a hardcore researcher and a doctor, and I focus on food as medicine and health and prevention, I think it's okay to be human.
Yeah.
And we have to address that part of our makeup as well, because if you spend all your time thinking about restriction, that's also unhealthy. The first thing I would say that you should really, really cut down on is added sugar, especially when it comes to soda. A single can of soda has 7 to 9 teaspoons of sugar. Way too much sugar. That is going to trigger inflammation into your body just by metabolic overload. And that is something that if you cut down or cut out, you're immediately going to actually have less inflammation in your body. Now, what about diet soda? Non-caloric sweeteners in a way, even worse. And let me tell you why. Even though you don't get the calories with a diet soda, what we've now discovered is that those non-nutritive sweeteners are aspartame, sucralose, saccharin, you name it, the whole shebang of these artificial additives that taste sweet on the tongue. They damage our gut microbiome. In fact, they kill some of the good, healthy bacteria. Now, our microbiome is these healthy bacteria that we know live in our gut. We talk about gut health. And when you damage those bacteria, they can't do their job. So what's one of the most important jobs of our gut microbiome? Well, there's a lot of jobs they do, but one of the most important is that when the gut microbiome is doing its job, it's releasing substances called short-chain fatty acids. These are postbiotics made by the gut bacteria. You know what they do? They lower your inflammation all by themselves. Mother Nature's best non-steroidal anti-inflammatory is actually in our gut. Our gut is giving us like Motin Plus all the time, as long as we're actually treating them well. But if you poison the gut bacteria with artificial sweeteners or emulsifiers, now we realize like thickeners can also do the same thing. Hey, you know what? They're not happy. When they're not happy, they're not doing their job. When they're not doing their job, they're not lowering inflammation. Now your inflammation levels go up. One thing you could do with diet that is very simple is to cut down or cut out sodas. Both regular soda or diet soda is a simple way of actually lowering inflammation in your body. I'm a scientist, I'm also a doctor, and I'm also a coffee lover, and I also drink tea. And I get to ask this question all the time. Because if you talk to talk, you walk to walk. Yeah, I drink tea and I drink coffee. Actually, I drink really strong coffee. I like espresso. Now, let me tell you, just like alcohol, when you actually drink coffee, that caffeine is a brain stimulant. Okay, it does activate our brain. Our body will similarly react to caffeine as a foreign substance in the body to try to neutralize it and deactivate it. So to some extent, our liver is also lowering caffeine levels. Our body, caffeine also breaks down on its own, but everyone's sensitivity to caffeine is going to be different. And you can build up your sensitivity to caffeine if you drink a lot of coffee as well. I think this is that individualization. I think that everyone's got a different sensitivity to caffeine. It also depends on what you've eaten before you actually have a cup of coffee. These types of complexities mean that if you like coffee, the taste of coffee, try it out and see if the caffeine actually hits you in a way that's too much. All right. But and back down. You can back down or get out. Or you could take the decaf portion and then you get the taste without the mental zing. But I will tell you something that, like with all this interest in longevity today, most people want to live with an intact brain and be cognitively sharp, right? That's one thing that we all fear as we get older, is that our brain's going to kind of get dull or numb or we're forgetful. Well, studies have shown that caffeine is this really unique substance that activates parts of our brain that keep us really, really sharp. Attention span really sharp. But when I have my matcha in the morning and I feel a little bit of energy in a good way, I'm not robbing from my overall energy levels like later in the day or in the long term.
No, you're not. I mean, this is, I think there's way too much attention being paid to the way people portray spikes and crashes. But so like that doesn't happen with caffeine. You're not going to get an energy spike and then an energy crash when you drink your cup of matcha. And, matcha is a really actually relaxing tea to have. It can actually make you brain sharp and it can wake you up for sure, but actually has also got a soothing kind of feel to you. Like you can actually feel a little calmer while being more alert at the same time. It is true that if you take apple cider vinegar straight and you do it continuously, frequently, constantly, day in and day out, week after week, you will actually damage the enamel in your teeth because it's strong stuff. I mean, think about it. You can, ask your grandmother, she'll tell you. You can use vinegar to clean stains off of a rug or a carpet or piece of leather, right? That's strong stuff. But you want to actually dilute apple cider vinegar, like those 3 tablespoons or 1 tablespoon in a glass of water. And that dilution is totally fine. I mean, think about it. We drink lemon juice and lime juice, in water, and it's totally fine. But do dilute it in something with water is ideal rather than have it straight. And if you have it straight, if you happen to like to slug it down straight, what I strongly suggest you do is to drink water afterwards. Like drink a glass of water afterwards, or rinse your mouth out, like just like you were brushing your teeth, just to wash away the acid from your mouth. So it doesn't actually degrade your enamel. As a general rule, I always say eating the whole fruit, the whole food, is always going to be better for you because you get other nutrients, micronutrients, and you get more of the dietary fiber, much more actually, if you eat the whole pomegranate fruit. So I encourage people to eat the pomegranate fruit. There's juice that's in the fruit, but as well, so you'll get the L-arginine's for sure. The juice itself to drink, I caution people when they're drinking pomegranate juice. First, you don't need very much to grow acromantia and get good mucus from your colon. You only need 1 cup, 1 small fluid cup. All right, that's not very much. It's like 2 shot glasses, boom, boom, and you're done for the day. All right, this is not about drinking a big, tall smoothie, of pomegranate juice. It's very sweet. You can overload on your sugar on there. So I encourage people to stick with like just 1 cup max if you're doing the juice. The second thing with the juice is that be very careful of the provenance or the origins of the juice and what's put in it. Because, pomegranate juice, you squeeze it from a pomegranate, okay? It's pure juice. And there are makers of pure pomegranate juice. On the other hand, many commercial brands of pomegranate juice will have other things added to it. You do not want added sugar. You don't want other additives. You don't want any artificial coloring or flavoring or anything else. So, if you're going to drink the juice because you have difficulty eating the whole fruit, don't drink very much of it. 1 cup a day is more than enough. And even that's a pretty hefty sugar load. All right. So you want to be careful about not doing more than that. You're not doing this to satisfy your thirst. You're not drinking pomegranate juice for hydration. You're drinking it specifically to get those polyphenols that actually help your colon secrete the mucus so that your acromancy can grow. Oh, that's a great tip. Thank you for that. You spoke about hydration, and you've written a whole chapter in your new book as well. And I know you love your coffee because I see it in all of your lives. I see it in your Instagram and your books that you have. You go through a couple of cups of coffee and green tea in a day. I would love for you to talk about your research on black coffee. You've written so much about, brown fat, white fat. When it comes to black coffee, the health of the liver, I would love for you to talk about coffee because people, again, are fearful of coffee. And we encourage them to be fearful of coffee that has all the added sugars and the flavors and the whipped creams and all of that stuff. But when we're talking about plain, good quality black coffee, I would love for you to share your research on that and how much can we, like a man?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me just say that I
wrote a chapter in Eat to Beat Your Diet, my book on metabolism and healthy eating and losing body fat. Because people are always asking me questions about like what's a good beverage to drink. And as it turns out, my research shows that there is a holy trinity, as I call it, of beverages. Holy trinity, 3 very, very important beverages that are good for you and not bad for you, okay? And those holy trinity is water, clean water, ideally clean water that comes from a clean source and not from a plastic bottle. So many people now are beginning to move away quickly from the plastic water bottles that are sold everywhere. You go on vacation, it's a hot weather, like I'm sure it is in India, and like where do you go? You go to the person selling some cold water naturally out of a plastic bottle. Number one, the plastic bottle is bad for the planet. All right, that plastic does not get recycled. Plastic bottles with good quality water turn that water into bad quality water because the plastic bottles are cheap and they shed microplastics. All right, and those microplastics get everywhere. These microplastics have now been discovered to be in our blood. They've been discovered in the atherosclerotic plaques that narrow your blood vessels in cardiovascular disease. In fact, a study in Italy showed last year that people who have microplastics, studying like embedded in the plaques
that are narrowing their arteries in their neck compared to the people who don't have plastic in their arteries, that those with plastic in their plaques have a 4-fold increase in having a fatal heart attack or stroke. Now, it's a correlation, but it's a scary one. And now we're beginning to realize you can do a blood test and even detect microplastics in normal blood. We can detect microplastics in the human brain. That's a research study that came out recently. They found plastic in testicles. They found plastic in the human penis. Urologists who are doing penile implants have found it in the tissue, and they've also found plastic in human semen as well. So look, we can't ignore this anymore. If you're going to actually drink water, which is really healthy for you, helps you actually lose visceral fat, get it, make sure that you're getting the cleanest possible source, not in plastic. Second, tea. Tea also made with water. So be careful about the plastic it's stored in. Like iced tea or whatever, a tea is really, really good for you. Green tea, matcha tea, black tea, fermented teas, all good for you because of the polyphenols. As long as you don't add milk to it. Dairy will trap the polyphenols. So when you drink it, you're actually missing out, like the bubble of the saturated fat around polyphenols gets flushed through your system. You miss the opportunity to absorb it into your bloodstream. All right. And coffee is a third of the Holy Trinity. Coffee. Listen, coffee is a plant-based beverage. Comes from the coffee bean. The bean grows on a tree. The tree, the origin of coffee goes back more than 4,000 years. In fact, it goes so far back in human history that we can't even identify an origin story. So coffee was consumed before recorded history. All right, that's how far back it goes. We think it started in Ethiopia, that area that we call Ethiopia today. And there are beans that actually grow, berries that actually grow on a low-lying shrub tree. Pick those, dry them, roast them, and inside the seed of this berry, the coffee berry, you wind up having polyphenols, lots of polyphenols, caffeic acid, chlorogenic acid. These are some of the natural bioactives. I found chlorogenic acid helps you burn harmful body fat. So drinking coffee actually revs up your metabolism and helps you burn fat. So long as you don't put dairy fat in it, which is saturated fat, and so long as you don't actually put sugar in it, like you don't want to add sugar to coffee, even though it's popular, because then you're adding calories and you're taking some fat away, you're growing some fat. Net, you're not going to be making progress on it. And you definitely don't want to be putting artificial sweeteners in it because, people say, well, let me just use a non-caloric sweetener for my coffee. Wrong move. And again, this is recent discoveries have shown that these artificial sweeteners actually don't get absorbed as calories. So you're right. They don't increase your blood sugar by themselves. But ironically, they actually poison the gut microbiome. They cause your gut to be unhealthy. They kill healthy bacteria. And now your insulin sensitivity doesn't work as well, and your blood lipids don't work as well. So people who drink a lot of beverages with artificial sweeteners, guess what? Their blood sugars actually rise, despite the fact they're not drinking actual sugar, and their inflammatory levels rise because their gut microbiome is sick. And their blood lipids rise as well because the gut microbiome helps to lower lipids. So everything that you wanted to do by drinking coffee gets reversed by putting artificial sweetener. So don't do that. So water, tea, coffee, the Holy Trinity. I go back to the things that I encounter, I make for myself every single day, or make sure that I'm putting it into my diet every single day, which is the benefits of coffee, benefits of tea, and keeping it elemental, meaning simple, unadulterated, like none of the crazy drive-through stuff with flavorings. But yeah, the more data I look at coffee or tea, I'm saying, this actually makes sense. And it's quite impressive that it also improves the cognitive function in people who are older. It improves muscle strength and performance in people as they get older as well. I haven't really been able to poke any holes or, even as kicking the tires about coffee and tea. So it makes me double down on, the pleasure I already get out of drinking coffee. I usually drink coffee in the morning and I'll drink tea in the evening. How many cups of tea would you have in a day? And what's your favorite kinds?
I like green tea, but I also like lung tea. I like jasmine tea. Jasmine tea is just green tea with jasmine flowers in it. And in my last book, one of the things I wrote about is that it's a myth that you only have the green. only green tea is actually healthy. It turns out that black teas are also healthy, and they also have theoflavins and other bioactives that are also beneficial that can help your metabolism.
All right. And then the fermented teas, which is taking tea to a ultra extreme where it's black and it's fermented. It becomes a probiotic tea.
Wow, cool. I can actually drink tea that's also probiotic.
So I think I've expanded as I'm going through my research. Now I'm deepening my appreciation of the benefits of both tea and coffee. I'm also thinking about drinking matcha more. I enjoy matcha anyway. It's a little bit more work to actually, because it's powder, you got to dissolve it and, you got to store it in a certain way. But honestly, matcha contains the fiber, 100% of the fiber of the tea leaf.
Good for the gut microbiome.
Gut brain, I'm thinking about aging, longevity and aging and cognitive health. Like, okay, maybe I should do some matcha now as well. So yeah, it's a good question. Like, honestly, these are the day-to-day things as I'm researching and learning and thinking about and writing. I'm also encountering, I'm not writing science fiction. I'm writing about science fact. Hey, if you like that video, then you're going to love this one. Check it out.